We have a few minutes left at the end of the program now for questions. So if you would join us at the table, that would be great. And do we have microphones wandering? There's one there. Okay.
I think that this is just amazing and exciting stuff, and I have read some material previously and was actually surprised at the improvements in public health that have been happening. One thing that concerns me is it sounds as though we're accepting that the world population will go to 10 billion people when it's something like 6.5 billion now. And even though you've mentioned, gee, in China, for instance, it will peak by 2030 or something like that. This acceptance of going to 10 billion and the hope that it will plateau is sort of an elephant in the room. The thing we don't seem to be able to address is that the sophisticated or the more mature cultures that have things like public health and studies, our populations are dropping, but areas like the Middle East, most of the population is under 25 years of age. There's no jobs, there's poor outlook for life, and a lot of...
I'm wondering if you could get to the question because...
So the long story is why can't we address the growth of population?
Who would like to respond?
Well, let me have a crack at that. Something we do deal with in the Commission report, and we do acknowledge that population growth is a very important driver of change. And we point out that around the world at the moment, about 225 million women who want to have access to effective contraception don't have access to it. So step one we can do actually is to make sure that there are enough funds going into providing modern and effective contraception to those women who wish to make use of it. And that would have a big effect in its own right. And it's actually a fairly small amount of money by global terms. It's about $5 billion per year, something of that order, which sounds a lot of money, but in international development terms it isn't very much at all. So that's one thing that we can do, a very practical thing. We should be making sure that enough money is going into family planning programs. And that will also produce many near-term benefits as well, because it will reduce maternal deaths by about 30%, because as we know, many of the unwanted pregnancies are taking place in low-income countries where maternal death rates are high. So it'll have a lot of near-term benefits as well as the long-term benefits. And of course the other broader issues are around education of women, advancement of women, and so on. And that's more of a longer-term issue. But again, ensuring that sufficient money is going to education and that encompasses both men and women is a really important development goal, I think. So I think there's a lot that can be done. I fully agree with you. We shouldn't accept the fact or the possibility that population growth will just inexorably go up. I don't think that's necessarily true, and I think there's a lot that can be done. One thing we have to accept, though, that as Payne pointed out, in most parts of the world, any population growth that's happening is due to population momentum. So it's due to the fact that there's more young people around, but actually the family size is quite small. But in sub-Saharan Africa it's different, because in sub-Saharan Africa the family size is still high. And so probably we should be focusing a lot more efforts in terms of sub-Saharan Africa and providing the contraception that is demanded and often not available.
Over here.
Thank you. Oftentimes, at personal, local, international level, we're very good at identifying problems. Sooner or later, at some point, we come to thinking about solutions. And oftentimes, solutions are not addressed until there is a crisis. How can we and what can we do to operationalize some of the solutions that are here or enhance the solutions that create value for people to think, yes, we need to do it. We don't need to wait for 911 to start thinking about we need to do things differently. What can we do? Share with us, please. How can we operationalize this rather than just talk about it?
Sure. Let me just off Let me offer one thought, is that we don't have to do everything at once. There are comprehensive solutions that we need to pursue, but there are also other steps along the way that we should be taking right away. An example is we at the Rockefeller Foundation have decided to invest considerable energy over the next couple of years on dealing with food waste. And that was mentioned as an issue coming forward as we deal with food shortages and so forth. What can we do, focusing on what the waste that's occurring now in different parts of the world.
Speaking to the mic.
That now in different parts of the world, from the field to the marketplace. What can we do to reduce the waste and spoilage in that part of the chain, the value chain? So there are things like that we can go ahead and do now. Don't have to wait for the 911 while we're working on broader solutions.
Perhaps I could just add to that some people say, well, some of these things are uncertain, so let's wait until we're really certain and then we'll act. And I think the message from the Commission report is that if you wait until you're absolutely certain what's going to happen, it's going to be too late. Because many of these changes are unrolling now before our very eyes. And we need to act now in order to prevent disaster occurring in the near future. And one of the very important driving forces is that we don't pay the full economic cost of a lot of the environmental damage that our lifestyles and so on accrue. One of the figures that struck me a lot in preparing the report was that there are about $5 trillion US in terms of subsidies to fossil fuels around the world, for example. $5 trillion is a whole lot of money. I mean, that's enough to probably buy a renewable energy future 5 times over. Think about an extra $1 trillion a year to invest in renewable energy systems over and above what we're already going to pay in energy systems. A lot of those subsidies are because we don't pay the damage. You know, when we burn coal or we burn oil or whatever, we don't pay the damage caused by the air pollution, and we don't pay the longer-term damage caused by the climate change or the acidification of the ocean. So we have to learn as a society how to cost things properly. And that means we need the advice of people like yourself as to how we can do that and how we can reconfigure the kind of incentives so that we're actually paying the full and true economic cost. And then that will drive us towards this virtuous path of development very quickly.
So there are two schools of thought that we often hear, and one is such as you're saying that we need to get on this right away. Then there are others who are saying, well, this is just natural cyclic variation. Do you think we're getting any closer to getting consensus so that the science doesn't get bashed and is accepted so that we can move forward with unity, or is that struggle going to continue?
I feel like, at least in the United States, that the conversation has shifted over the last couple of years. At the risk of getting political here, Tom, the climate deniers, for example, are an increasing minority voice in the United States, and from our point of view, that's a good thing. I don't think we've reached that point yet where there's kind of a unanimity on courses of action that need to be taken, but at least I think the debate is shifted to the point that yes, we've got a problem, we need to figure out what to do, and that's an important shift.
Very, very important shift.
Yeah, I agree fully. I mean, I think we have seen a really seismic shift in as much as the scientific consensus now is really building. And you know, when you look at the whole range of trends, which I just showed very, very briefly, you know, it's impossible not to come to the conclusion that things are changing very, very dramatically. And it's not just a single set of observations, it's not just one person making that observation. There are thousands of scientists working on these whole range of issues. And I think the evidence we have is really very strong. Of course, there are still uncertainties about what the future holds, you know, how bad will the future be, what the magnitude of it. But as I say, I don't think that's necessarily relevant to the decisions we need to make today, because we need to make those decisions anyway. And many of the solutions are win-win solutions and things that will improve our health and well-being in the near term anyway. So let's just go for it and make the changes we need to make.
I would like to thank you on behalf of the entire commission, the Rockefeller Foundation for supporting this, the Lancet for making it possible and publicizing it. I think it's an important milestone in the march forward to try to figure out solutions to these problems. I thank Rotary for allowing us to present this information at the weekly Rotary meeting. How many of you are non-Rotarians? Yeah, nice gathering. I'm both a Rotarian and a member of UCLA, so I get to span both worlds. But anyway, I thank you very, very much for the hard work you've done. We know this has been an incredible challenge, and we do hope it will move the field forward. We are positive that it will, and I'd like to turn the meeting back over to President Jose.